right, hello everyone. We are live talking about passkeys and deploying passkeys in the date. So this is Martin Gallo, Director of Product Management here at HYPR. I'm along with Sam Gross, our VP of Product Management as well. We're having some audio issues, but we will go straight into it. So today's session is about passkeys deployment in a day. We would like to call it that way because that's kind of what our lot of organizations are demanding for, right? So we are going to talk about passkeys, but in particular passkeys for enterprises and passkeys in the workforce. That's going to be so. This is, again, Martin Barrio. I'm Director of Product Management. I oversee most of our Hyper Authenticate product and kind of our passwordless MFA solution here at Hyper. And as I mentioned, I'm here with Sam Gross, VP of Product. You want to give a quick
Hi, Martine. I think I have fixed my audio problems. Apologies for the brief audio hiccup, but I think folks should be able to hear me now. I'm Sam Gross. As Martine introduced me, I'm the VP of Product at HYPR for Passkeys or for VP of Product here at HYPR, and Martine works on our Passkey and authentication products. To start with, Martine, for a second, pretend I'm not the VP of Product at a company that builds authentication technology, and just tell me what is a passkey? Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a good question and a good way to start, because there's been a lot of evolution recently around this, right? So I will describe passkeys as basically the replacement for passwords, right? Passkeys are basically credentials, like digital credentials that are based on the FIDO standards, and they are meant to be a replacement for passwords. The idea is that you can take a passkey, you can use a passkey for signing in into websites or mobile applications or web applications across all your user devices. And one of the good things that actually make this really compelling, and the reason why all industries moving in this direction, is that unlike the passwords, the passkeys are by default phishing resistant and always strong. So those not only provide a very pleasant user experience, but also from a security standpoint, you don't have a lot of the challenges associated with passwords. So everything that has to do with the account registration, like signing up for a new application, a new web service, is very easy to use. Basically, you use the same authentication method that you use to unlock your device on a daily basis, and that's one of the main promises. And it also works across most of the user devices, and also even across the device, right? So that's what makes it very very suitable for like a lot of, or I will say almost any modern authentication flow where you need to prove the user's identity.
Cool. And passkeys come in a variety of flavors, right? Now I'm just going to stop pretending that I know nothing and I know a little bit more. There's a variety of flavors of passkeys that have varying trade-offs for deployment, both in the consumer context and in enterprise context. Let's step folks through what those might be and sort of how those balance out.
Yeah, that's good call out as well, because passkeys and the FIDO, the work that the FIDO Alliance has been doing through the different standard has been evolving, right? So we started from like credentials that were used for certain scenarios, and then we expand as an industry into covering more use cases and more scenarios, until we finally reach the point where now with what we call like the passkeys as a whole. So overall, we have, like, at the very least, like three big different flavors of passkeys, or the way to categorize it. I would like to group them into three different levels. The ones that we have at the right are like the app level passkeys. These are like what used to be or called or known as the FIDO UAF credentials, but basically are devices that are specific to one application and are meant to be used on one application only, right? They're not provided by like the platform, so the mobile operating system doesn't have anything to do with this passkey, and it's basically a credential that you use to authenticate to your application, but or to prove your identity to one application in particular. But it's not something that you can use to, like for example, show to the browser or interact with other applications or things like that. Those are still like around, and there's still a lot of value into it. But we have seen the rise of device-bound passkeys, right? Which are the second flavor, the one in the middle. Initially brought to like physical security keys. The idea is that these are passkeys where the credential and more importantly, the private key of those credentials is stored and kept on one particular device, right? So you have one of these credentials that is specifically bound to one particular device that you have. That can be like a laptop, it can be a workstation, it can be your mobile phone, or it can be one of these security keys that has been around for years. And the idea is that that passkey is constrained and bound to that particular device. You can use it across, like to authenticate, for example, to your browser. You can use it to authenticate to mobile applications. You can do certain or some form of like cross-device authentication as well. But the main idea is that private key is kept on that particular device. That's the characteristic that made it device bound. It's still phishing resistant. It still shares all the security characteristics of other type of passkeys as well. But the idea is that it's bound to one particular device. And we have the newer type of passkeys that are the ones on the left side, which are what we call like the sync passkeys. These are like FIDO2 credentials, FIDO2 credentials that are synced to other users' devices. So the idea is that these passkeys are ones that you can register in one particular device, but also those can be shared or can be synchronized with other devices. And this being basically what is driving lately the very large amount of adoption in the market, because what it gives users is the ability to not have to deal with like all the challenges associated to the recoveries, all the challenges associated with making sure that you keep the same device that you register every time you need to access certain service or things like that. So these are the passkeys that you are going to see, for example, natively provided by your platform, like Apple through the iCloud chain, Google through their Google Password Manager, or a Microsoft accounts. And the idea is that those are very suited to like consumer scenarios and for your day-to-day users, in the sense that, again, if you have a couple of devices all register and all synchronized, you might have like multiple devices on the same platform. Basically, what this gives you is the ability to forget about having to again, use the same device every time you need to access those services. There's also recently been a lot of progress and development into making those passkeys interoperable and being able to exchange passkeys from one platform to another, which basically makes them even more suitable for that type of scenarios, and to share like between different flavor or type of platforms as well. And that's pretty much like the three big group of like passkeys in the way we like to describe it, so it's easier to understand.
And a lot of the passkey deployments that exist today and that folks on the live stream and frankly you and I are familiar with are passkeys that are deployed in the context of, between a consumer and an enterprise, and they're really focused on ease of use for a customer. But what do we do when we really want to deploy a passkey in an enterprise environment where it's between an employee, a contractor, a workforce person, for lack of a better term, because we really don't have a great term for just a person who's got some sort of employer or employee relationship and the company itself. So how do we deploy passkeys in that environment? How do we get passkeys ready for that world?
Yeah, and that's been one of the challenges, right? So the introduction of the passkeys as a whole, and but in particular the six passkey has enabled the industry to basically get this massive adoption through the platforms. So everyone, even sometimes even when they don't know, they already have passkeys being provisioned to their like platform and mobile devices and things like that. The things that we hear when we talk with like organizations like enterprises and things like that, there's a couple of things that basically make that type of passkeys a little bit challenged to be introduced in the workforce or in the enterprise. So we're going to basically cover a little bit of that. But uh, one of the one of the things that we see a lot of challenges understanding is what are the security characteristics around the provisioning and the management of those passkeys, right? So again, the big thing is that everyone, regardless of what type of passkeys, is phishing resistant, right? So those are characteristics that are granted and are basically provided by the specs themselves, all the interoperability between the different protocols and the different implementations. But you basically don't necessarily have a lot of assurance as an organization or as an enterprise into what was the process that was used to bootstrap one particular passkey, right? Or what are the characteristics of a recovery process tied to one of those sync passkeys that again are very well suited for consumer scenarios where you as an owner basically know what are the devices that you have associated to your account and things like that. But from an enterprise perspective, that's definitely a challenge, right? So the provenance piece and kind of the challenge of how you as a company, as an organization, can understand and relate to the provisioning, the bootstrapping, as well as all the different potential recovery flows associated to those passkeys is one of the main roadblocks that we see. Some of the other things that we also discuss with the organizations we talk with has to do around the management, right? And in addition to the management, also or as part of it, also the deployment, right? So if enabling your organization to use certain authentication flows requires you to basically use, I don't know, make sure that you need to have all your devices managed through like a provider. Make sure you basically are federating your IDP to the authentication solution. Make sure you need to have certain deployment steps. All that basically gets into the way of deploying this type of credentials and this type of authentication solutions. So the deployment as a whole and basically all that's required for it is definitely a challenge. The other thing is related to the user experience or kind of what they call the seamless authentication experiences that you can provide to your employees. If your users have to use one particular solution to log into your mobile apps or the web apps, but they need to use something different to access, for example, their main workstation or the laptop they use for their day-to-day office job, that gets also into the way of getting this adopted in the enterprise. And then all that things has to do with also compliance, like control, audit, like centralized control from a policy perspective, from a verification perspective, and things like that. So all in all, what we're thinking is like user experience, like um, unified user experience across all the different channels that your employees or your users use, the ability to deploy these at scale and without all these deployment hurdles, and finally the phishing resistance property, but not only at the authentication time, but also across all the life cycle of the credentials and the devices. So those are kind of the main topics and the main things that when we have conversations with these organizations, they raise us kind of concerns or challenges with the different type of passkeys out there.
That's really, I mean, I am astounded by the amount of improvements that we're able to make on, sort of what to a lot of people looks like just a standardized form of authentication. But it's a pretty big change, right? It's a huge change to go from where a lot of organizations are today, which is still on shared secret password. Maybe if you're lucky, you've got sort of a comprehensive MFA that either the push or an SMS based one-time password, one-time passkey password, but like just an extra second factor that kind of overlays. For most people, it's only over some of their authentication services. How do you go from that, which is a mess, to a world where you can actually say, let's even get rid of all shared secrets, get rid of all of our passwords, get rid of all of our random second factors that are always needing to be reset and never working quite right? How do you go from point A of today to point B, which is the sort of marvelous future of authentication that's pretty seamless?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So, and the way we like to say this is that the boxes can be deployed in a day, but definitely adoption is going to take a lot more, right? And the way we like to frame it is also in a phase approach, where we also have like a maturity model that we refer to, like this notion of crawl, walk, run, or like the idea of making incremental steps in your way into a full deployment and a full adoption, right? We have like, again, different models according to organization, the needs, but basically what is important is to first understand that not every user population and not every group within your user population has the same requirements, the same needs. So one of the things is to first understand where the requirements, where are the needs, understand where are the current flows that you have in place across all your different applications, across all the different systems, identify where the users that are at more high risk first, which usually are the more important ones to consider, and align all the different stakeholders into like, what do you consider as success, right? That will be the first phase and kind of the first approach. And then we have like a three phase or three additional phases that are basically about this idea of start launching and covering more use cases as you go through it, right? So launch up a self-service basket enrollment as a one first step. Maybe keep it in parallel with all the other like what we now call legacy MFA, but all the existing methods, so that doesn't disrupt any flow, but at the same time allows you to start getting some feedback, validate the different workflows, validate that it's working as expected, identify roadblocks, identify points of potential friction, and things that maybe you need to communicate in a different way or things like that. So that's going to give you a lot of that feedback to 10, moving to like a next phase of start rolling out in a small or a different group of users. That can be done by department, by region, by device type. There's a lot of strategies you can follow based on, again, your particular needs. And at that point, you can start basically begin a phase retirement of the legacy MFA method. So as more users start to adopt and use the passkeys on their day-to-day on a day-to-day basis, you can start removing and phasing out all the legacy MFAs, removing not only the complexity, but also this is the point when you start actually incrementing the security posture of your whole organization, right? There's also a lot of support training that uh, at this point of time is definitely going to be important to make sure that the you can support those passkey first flow when you start retiring all the legacy MFA ones. And finally, there's like the latest phase, which is more about like start enforcing the use of passkeys, right? So you get the adoption, you start phasing out some of the legacy MFAs. At one point, you would like to actually require those passkeys to be the primary, the day-to-day authenticators or methods your users will have. Decommission of all the shared secrets, OTPs, things that might be lingering around and still relying on insecure methods. And definitely, last piece is also work on the governance part and formalize like where the policies, the re-verifications, the analytics, make sure you can account for like measuring the success, not only from an initial adoption perspective, but how it's actually contributing, right, to the security posture, to that increment in the user experience that we all know is going to be important there. So that's the way we like to kind of frame it and how we are seeing a lot of success in organizations. Not with a like big bang approach, but something that you actually can use as a learning process, make increments, and start measuring the value that is adding to your organization.
Cool. And I think let's like show folks what this looks like in the real world. I think we've got a little bit of a recorded demo, which yes, it's a recorded demo that we've set up, but it is how it works in the real world. It's pretty neat. Let's roll the tape for the
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah, this is really exciting because it's when you start to see something actually in place and start to tie all the different things we talk about. I'm going to share a very quick demo actually that shows only a couple of flows, right? But I think are one of the more important ones. This is basically a brand new user, right? Imagine like someone onboarding a new employee. What we're going to do is basically take that user to our identity verification flow. In this case, we share a link with the user. It can be through like a personal email, a messaging solution, or any other way to relate that to the user. The user is going to open that link in the mobile phone. They're going to basically enter the new provision email account or email address. This case, we're going to use one of our demo tenants. So the user basically start the process of verifying itself. To this, we are kind of learning a little bit here because we're doing basically a phone number check. This is to verify and understand that the phone number that we have on record matches with what the user had. So we send an OTP and validate that through the system. So the user gets the OTP value, they enter it. We're going to also check location to make sure that the location of the user matches with what we have on record and what is expected. And then we're going to do an actual document verification. This is basically through like government issue document. The user basically approves, take the document, scan it, and we on the back are going to validate that it actually matches what is again on record. It matches the document, the user information that it was provided before as well. And finally, we're going to do a match of the user. This is also as a way to do a liveness validation. And after the user going through all this flow is completely flexible and configurable. But the idea is that you, according to your risk profile, define all those steps. What happened right after, and it was pretty quick, is that we actually set up a new passkey for that user, right? So after the user completed the identity proofing or the identity validation flow, the phone app directly take that as a success output. They provided the biometric, registered their account, and now the user is using that same account to log into your desktop. So imagine like a 0-day onboarding process where the only thing you need to have is basically send that link to the user. The user can complete all the process through the mobile phone and basically be ready to access all their work applications right after doing that. So pretty quick, pretty neat. I think it's really exciting because it's again when all the things we start to we were just discussing, right? This idea of the phishing resistant authentication, but combined with all the strong characteristics that an identity proofing can provide, this is basically where you can start to see it in real life and actually in the works.
Awesome. I every time we have like we do a new demo reel, I get more excited because we move the state of the art just a little bit further forward every time we do a release, and the newer releases have gotten to the point where stuff looks very, very seamless and sort of belies the hard work behind the scenes that gets it all to work that way. But we're sort of approaching the end of our live stream, but also let's acknowledge it's the end of the year, right? Everyone's watching this, they're going, okay, this is really cool, but it's a 2026 thing. We've got what feels like a short week this week if you're in the US and celebrating Thanksgiving, and a short month if you're thinking about December for pretty much everybody around the world. So what can people start doing in the next 4.5 weeks that we have left in the year to get going on Enterprise Passkey?
Yeah, that's a good question, and again, that's what we like to um, uh, again highlight this as that it can be actually deployed pretty short, and we can add value. You can add value to your organization really quickly with the adoption of passkeys. One of the things you can start doing is actually identifying one pilot group. It can be IT, it can be executive, it can be remote users, it can be wherever you think is the best way to start. You can actually start assessing where the policies that you currently have for example, onboarding a new employee, but also what happened is they lost their account, right? I am providing a phishing resistant way of recovering access to those employees or not. Like, what are the methods that I'm using? What are the things that my users have available? And you can actually schedule a 30-minute planning session before end of year when you can start thinking about how to like basically leverage passkeys, leverage all the different technologies and the solutions that HYPR has to actually start moving the needle and making progress towards that goal, right? That's something definitely possible, and you can get from plan to actually start having a pilot in a week.
Amazing. Thanks, Martin. That sort of brings us to the end of what we're here to talk about. I'm going to wrap things up with a thank you to everyone who's watching live, everyone who's watching in the future, the recording of this. Thank you to Martin for presenting, and the marketing and engineering and the rest of the organization at HYPR who helped Martin and I show up and look good today. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody else who's here. And if you are celebrating a holiday in this week or the coming month, have a very happy whichever holiday you may celebrate. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.